Claire Reynolds hadn't driven this far in years. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel of her battered blue pickup as the winding dirt road unfolded before her like a faded map. Texas was nothing like Oregon, where rain kissed the earth and grief still hung in her home like stale perfume. She had packed everything she owned into 2 duffel bags and an ice chest. All she had was faith, and a job posting she found on a rancher's community board. Seeking kind-hearted live-in ranch hand. Must be comfortable with horses. Widowed preferred. It wasn't just a job. It felt like a whisper from above. As her truck kicked up dust approaching the large wooden arch that read Lone Pine Ranch, Claire double-checked her printed directions. This was it. Or so she thought. She parked and nervously walked toward a group of people chatting outside the barn. Some were saddling horses, others eating chili from plastic bowls. They all stopped when they saw her. A woman in worn boots, an old coat, and carrying hope stitched into every inch of her. A young man laughed. Ma'am, unless you brought a pie for the rodeo reunion, you might be lost. The group chuckled. Claire's cheeks burned. I'm looking for a ranch job. I saw a listing. More laughter. You took a wrong turn, sweetheart. This isn't a working ranch. She started to turn, mortified, when an older man stepped out of the barn shadows. Broad-shouldered, dust on his jeans, silver in his beard, and eyes as deep as autumn skies. Wait, he said quietly. Let her speak. The group fell silent. Claire bit her lip. I came for a live-in job. I thought this was Red River Ranch. He nodded slowly. That's 3 miles east. But, what did you say your name was? Claire Reynolds. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said words she would never forget. You may be at the wrong ranch. But I believe you're exactly where you're meant to be. His name was James McAllister. A widowed rancher in his 50s who had worked cattle his whole life and stopped praying for surprises after cancer took his wife 6 winters ago. Why would a woman like you want this life? He asked as they sat on the porch sipping coffee. Claire answered honestly. Because it's quiet. It's real. Anne. I'm tired of sleeping in a house filled with memories and not enough purpose. James leaned back, boots crossed at the ankle. You remind me of someone I used to know, my wife, if I'm being honest. They didn't say much more that night. But when she offered to help clean the barn for a place to sleep, he didn't say no. A week passed. Claire found herself rising with the sun, feeding horses, mucking stalls, and listening to wind rustle through mesquite trees. Then one night, the call came, one of the Mares was in labor, but something was wrong. James rushed to the stable with Claire at his side. The foal was stuck. Panic rose in his throat, he'd seen Mares die from this. But Claire, with shaking hands and a steady voice, crawled in. I helped a vet once, let me try. He could only nod. An hour later, as dawn broke, a healthy filly stood beside her exhausted mother. James knelt in the hay, tears glinting. I haven't seen new life born here since my wife passed, he whispered. I thought God stopped listening. Claire placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Maybe he was waiting for both of us to come here. Small towns talk. They noticed the woman with tired eyes and gentle strength working beside James. She showed up lost, one said. She ain't left yet, another added. But James didn't care. He invited her to stay the whole season. Then to help him set up a riding program for kids with autism. She worked with the gentlest horses, her voice like balm to the children. One day, as they packed gear into a trailer, Claire looked up at him. You know, this was supposed to be temporary. He smiled. I know. But it feels like home. He reached for her hand. It feels like grace. Months passed. The ranch blossomed. Then one morning, a letter arrived. Claire was accepted into a counseling program in New Mexico, a dream she'd given up after her husband died. James read it, his face unreadable. "This is your chance," he said, forcing a smile. "What if this, us, was the real chance?" she asked. He turned away. "I'm just an old man with a barn. You've got more to give the world." She left 2 days later, with tears in her eyes and a note tucked into James's hand. "You taught me how to live again. If you ever need me, I'll come back, not because I owe you, but because I belong there." 3 months later, a storm struck. Fences down. Calves lost. James injured his leg badly. He didn't call her. But she came anyway. With a truckload of supplies and that same unwavering strength. "You didn't ask," she said. "But I promised." As she worked beside him, night after night, something deeper rooted between them. Stronger than obligation. By fall, the ranch held its first community harvest festival in a decade. Children laughed. Horses nuzzled strangers. Families shared meals. James stood before the crowd. "I used to think God gave me one great love. But maybe He gives us more than one season." He looked at Claire, and for the first time, he said it aloud, "I love you. I prayed for you. Even when I didn't know your name." Where she was meant to be. They married under the old oak tree behind the barn, the same one Claire had rested beneath that first night. She often tells the story of how she ended up at the wrong ranch. "They laughed," she says with a smile. "And I almost left. But then he said, 'You're exactly where you're meant to be.' And he was right. Now, together, they run a healing place, for animals, children, and hearts that show up lost, but end up home. Sometimes, when life takes a wrong turn, it's just God answering a prayer in disguise.